Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We hope you're keeping very, very safe and well. Thank you ever so much for joining us as we bring to you a preview ahead of Manchester City, where probably only about 10 minutes of the show is going to be about the preview at this rate, given the nature of our football club. It's ever the soap opera, which always makes me believe I've got the wonderful Ricky Norwood, regular returning Ricky Norwood, back. Ricks, you go away, you come back, and it's just an absolute circus. How are you, mate?
It's never an easy day, is it? Nothing ever runs smooth, mate.
No.
You know when Lee McQueen coined the phrase "the crazy train"? Yeah. I never knew how much that would be so damn true. Do you know what I mean? Year in, year out. My gosh, what are we going to do? But always an honour and a pleasure to be on to discuss be discussing all of the madness, all of the highs and the lows, and looking forward to the future. So I can't wait to get in. Thanks for having me back, Ricks.
Yeah, Rick, I can't believe it can be worse than your last game, or your last match in here, which of course I won't remind you what my mood was like after Forest. We are going to move on swiftly from that. Joining Rick's back on the panel tonight. She was in over Christmas. She was enjoying life because Spurs wasn't in her life. We've got the wonderful Christina Zandes back on Last Word on Spurs. Christina, how you doing? You okay?
Struggling to unmute, clearly. I'm good, all good. Good to be back. And not snowing, long, right? Finally.
Yeah, withdrawal symptoms of talking Tottenham, right?
It's brilliant. Not quite. Can't wait to get involved now.
Honestly, 3 times a week's enough for me, quite mentally, and then going home to being in with a family. Yeah, 3 times a week definitely is enough talking Tottenham. Making up our panel tonight, Ricks, Christina, joining them both. We've got the wonderful George Achillea back on Last Word on Spurs. George, how are you, bud? You okay?
Yeah, I'm great, man. Thanks for having me back on. I thought I was here to, have a nice little chill chat, enjoy the talks about, Porro coming in, City to come forward to, and it's going to be stress, but it'll be fun.
What a time to drop the bomb. Like I say, we'll be discussing quite a number of factors tonight. We obviously will be looking ahead to Manchester City to come on Sunday, but in amongst the chat for this show, we'll be discussing Tottenham Hotspur's response to the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust. That'll be at the very, very top of this show. We'll be discussing Antonio Conte's absence. We have to say, wishing Antonio all the best as he recovers from recent surgery. So wishing him a very, very speedy recovery. We're going to need him on that touchline very, very soon. We'll be doing a quick debrief of the January transfer window, what it means for Tottenham, and also looking ahead to a huge game for the football club back at home this coming Sunday against Manchester City. So much to get into, but only really one place we can start on this show. And that's in regards to a recent, response we've had from Tottenham Hotspur directly to the Supporters Trust, where, if we're going to be honest with you, I've glanced at the statement before coming onto this show because it literally dropped only about 10, 15 minutes before we came on air. And the club have essentially hit back at criticism over their transfer spending ambition in response to a series of questions from the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust. Now, we've been lucky enough to have the Supporters Trust on here on a number of occasions. We're looking forward to having them join us hopefully soon again. But we'll just go through some of the responses we've had from the club, because I know the feeling out there, just to kind of maybe echo what I can only suggest and see, there's been a massive lack of reading of the room here from the club. I've got to be able to say that just some of the responses just baffling, really, at a time when I think all of us as fans want a sense of direction, want a sense of communication of where the club is going. I'm going to be honest and say that, the responses that we've had to some degree, I don't think they very much do little to clear up or give us any real sense of reassurance that we are going in the right direction. And I understand that maybe because it's mid-season, it is hard to answer these questions in full when we've got a manager in charge that essentially we're not sure if he's going to be here at the start of the season. But, at the moment, I've got to be honest and say, I am surprised at just the lack of how they've read the room on some of these responses. So we will get into them. And you know what, Rick, let's start with you. One of the 4 questions asked by the Supporters Trust was, will the club share its medium and long-term strategy for success, both on and off the pitch? And how is the club measuring progress? And how does it judge current outcomes against those measures? Now, the club set out a fairly lengthy response to that question, and I will read that out, in which they've said, in the last 20 years, the club has qualified for European competition 17 times, 13 of which are currently successive, including 6 Champions League campaigns. We set our business model in last year's financial results announcement, and below is the relevant section, foundations in place since ENIC became the majority shareholders in 2001. We've had a clear 3-step strategy. Firstly, we worked out to improve football performance, and whilst no one has a right to a smooth, continuous upward trajectory, we have seen the club rise from middle to bottom of the table finishes to being in European competition in 15 out of the last 16 seasons. Secondly, we built a state-of-the-art training centre to attract, train and retain the best talent, both for the academy and the first team. We have gone on to do far more than that with the delivery of our award-winning player accommodation, the Lodge, which has been instrumental in providing exceptional rest and recovery facilities and players and during the COVID-19 times. Thirdly, we have set out to deliver an increased capacity stadium that will not only generate greater matchday revenues, but also the opportunity for more fans to attend games. Our club could not remain competitive with one of the smallest stadiums in the Premier League. Having delivered our training centre, the Lodge and the stadium, we shall not stand still. We shall continue to innovate and ensure the most exceptional player, fan and visitors' experiences. Our building blocks are for the future success of the club are now firmly in place. Our club strategy going forward, therefore, our strategy is to be clear, to drive and generate revenue, to invest in all of our football activities. Football success, in turn, supports the growth of our club, our fan base, and consequently the wider commercial opportunities and partnerships, which then deliver further revenue to reinvest in football, the virtuous, sustainable circle in which our club model is based. And finally, they say, we shall develop new and diverse revenue streams, including increasing recurring revenues, third-party events such as conferencing, NFL, concerts, as we've seen this week with Beyonce being announced, boxing and rugby, also examples of this. Our stadium is a key component to our revenue growth, yet unbelievably, we have still not seen and enjoyed a full season in our newest stadium with attendances. We shall continue to invest in our senior management and our staff to deliver this and look to decrease our reliance on football revenues alone, such as that we protect our club long-term stability, year end 30th of June 2021. There is a bit more of that statement, but I don't want to keep talking. So, Rick, just a few from you at the moment from what they've laid out there. Does that, for you, give you a sense of reassurance with regards to the strategy?
Not really regards to the strategy, because it sounds like they don't really want to lay that strategy out, but they have told us and reiterated the good things that they've done. When we talk about the Lodge, when we talk about the training centre, when we talk about the stadium, it's very true that all of those things are going to be very attractive for the future and bringing in revenues that the likes of Liverpool, Man City, Man United, and the Gooners, now Newcastle, with new owners, we're going to be able to compete on those sides. It's a little bit a longer term. You've got to look longer term to get those funds in and those revenues in, and then start to compete in that way. But I think the major problem with it is a lot of us want something for the now. And especially when you get a manager in like Antonio Conte, who has risen the bar, and not only the bar within the club, but the bar amongst the fans, which is okay. Now, normally we're on long-term projects. Normally, we're used to buying a young one and developing him for a couple of years and then trying to get him into the first team. But since Antonio Conte turned up, I think the bar's been risen amongst the fan base, which is like, well, we need ready-made, ready to go, and we need some serious first team, first option players. And it doesn't really set out the long-term strategy, but they've let us know the good things that they're doing. And at the same time, I think they've kind of missed what the fans were asking. The real core of what the fans were asking. Look, they have done some good stuff. I would like them to address some of the bad stuff that they've done and to kind of go, all right, cool, let's learn the lessons from trying to get into the Super League, and not investing and backing Pochettino when we was growing. If we were to continue to grow and continue to invest and to continue to kind of have faith in that manager. Albeit there's we can all see that Pochettino was fed up with the whole situation towards the end. I remember him speaking about he's not the manager, he's the head coach. So that must have come from upstairs. So it would have been nice for them to address some of the mistakes that they've made, and kind of recognize the frustration that the fans have. But you know what? Ever since Paratici turned up, there's a lot of things that we've wanted that we kind of forget. We all wanted Daniel Levy to step away from the football side, step away from transfers, to have a real football person, a real football man within the club that can deal with football matters. They brought in Paratici. Ever since Paratici's turned up, not every single signing has been a success. For example, Emerson Royal, but he was bought for another manager and another system. Okay, so you can kind of allow it a little bit. But the purchases that he has made are first-team players, are upgrades on what we've had. Bentancur and Kulusevski, the first transfer window under Conte. Okay, they totally transformed the sides. There was 2 positions that we really needed, and I think we got lucky with both of those because they weren't our top target, but they ended up being targets that we could get, and that improved us straight away. When we look at Basuma, Perisic, is a soldier of Conte. It's somebody who knows what he needs, knows what he wants, and can go out there and do it, as well as help the young ones and those wing backs come through as well. Basuma upgrade on the midfield so that you're not playing the likes of Harry Winks, for example, or anybody else, because our midfield was open for a long time. But one of the failties that I would have liked them to address, and I don't know whether they have addressed it because I haven't seen the full statement as yet. Yep. But we've got £200 million worth of player, over £200 million worth of player out on loan right now.
Yep.
How have we not been able to secure some sales that?
Yeah, I can tell you, Rick. I mean, that I don't think is addressed from what I can gauge. We're going to run through obviously the answers to the questions, but. Yeah, I mean, that isn't addressed in there. I mean, like I said at the top of it, they've hit back at massive criticism over the transfer spending and ambition, and they feel that from their end, that's maybe not appreciated enough.
Well, technically, on a sheet, you can say that they've spent money, but have they spent money on the right players in the right positions at the right time? They haven't. This is what I'm saying about kind of recognizing some of, or at least announcing, talking about some of their failures. Some of them, every player, doesn't matter what their profile is or what their YouTube clips look like, every player that we spend money on is a risk. And if you're not going to get your top number 1 target, then it's even more of a risk. Absolutely. And we've done that over the years. Clinton NG, we could go on forever with the failed, Jack Clark being somebody who was quite recent. We ended up spending 10 million on him, never got a game, never progressed through to the first team whatsoever, and then we've ended up sending him for less than that 10 million. I can't remember what it was, but we've done that there where they could have put that money into somewhere else, into a first team player, into the Bruno Fernandes deal, or into the first teamers that particular manager at that time wanted. I saw another thing that Højbjerg is the only one that has survived from the Mourinho transfer window. I mean,
2020, yeah.
If that's not a damning indictment on the scouts and the transfer policy and spending money on players that are not going to improve you, look, like I said, every single transfer is a risk. But you can look at that and there's a lot that has gone wrong. So ever since Paratici's turned up, we have seen upgrades. Romero being an upgrade, Kulu, Bentancur being an upgrade. Porro is the first time that we've got our first number 1 target in a long time. Probably Romero was the number 1 centre-back target at that time. But, we haven't had that too many times. So, yes, the Porro deal took ages, but we all knew that he was the number 1 and we all wanted him. And if it didn't go through, there would have been riots. So there is upgrades and there is light at the end of the tunnel, but it would have been nice for them to kind of admit where they've gone wrong and looked at the failties of whether it be the scouting system or whether it be not spending enough on their first team target and the results that then followed, and the performances that then followed.
Yeah, no, listen, we're going to come on to, like I say, that definitely. I mean, Christian, just to bring you in, just to finish off that opening response by the club on that first question, they've said, we have delivered world-class facilities which are in a place to generate income for our investment all of our football activities. Our stadium debt is long-term, ensuring limited impact on the club's ability to invest. Completing the stadium was always a key step in our strategy of increasing and diversifying recurring revenues to fund our football activities. The COVID-19 pandemic saw a 2-year disruption and loss of circa 200 million. But we are now back on the planned journey of growth. We have seen the return of football, third-party events and visitor attraction income. Growing our revenue is essential for the club to continue to have the ability to invest in players. And finally, they said, we want to be consistently qualifying for the Champions League and challenging for and winning major honours. Returning to the Champions League this season was so important. Although we acknowledge the number of teams competing for those top 4 places, we are working hard to build a strong, deep squad with a winning mentality. There have been a detailed review of all departments on the football side of the club in order to constantly improve, and changes have been and continue to be made to ensure we remain competitive, attract and retain the best players and continue to progress. Improve recruitment and a world-class academy are vital to our future success. Those last paragraphs or so, look, I don't disagree with what they've said there, but I think the problem is that there isn't any real acknowledgement that a mistake has been made in any of the last 4 or 5 years. And, I don't think it's a bad thing to sometimes say, I've got something wrong, or we've got something wrong, or there's been a slight disconnect. Because I think as fans, we'd be so much more open if there was at least an admission that mistakes have been made and we're trying to rectify them. But we haven't really got that here. Do you think that's the biggest problem, Christina, that there's not been an acknowledgement that there has been things that have gone wrong and we're working to put them right? Because at least if you had that, that's a base to build off. But it is a very much defensive statement that's come out from the club on these questions in the West that we're going to come on to shortly. What do you make of it?
It feels like a slap in the face to me. When I was reading it, it just came across really, I don't know, like just so muggy to us fans. Where's the care for the fans? I don't understand. It's just such. I'm Levy out for sure at the moment. Well, not at the moment. I've been for a while now, and I just think it's such a shame that with all that we've got now, that they're using that as the positive. The stadium. Yes, all right, it's brilliant, but guys, we need to continue this with our football. We need to improve our squad. Everything about our club right now is just at a pause. And those points that they made is exactly what the fans have been shouting out, exactly what we have wanting to improve right now. There's been none of that. And that statement, I think, is just shows how much they deeply care about us fans. And it just makes me feel quite it's really annoyed me reading that. So to me, it's just I don't even know how to explain it. I feel it's such an embarrassment, I think. And, they're using all of this as it's just a huge money. It's just a piggy bank for them now.
Do you think, Christina, there's an element where they just sometimes they fail to read the room? Do you know what I mean? I just think generally there's a lack for some reason of understanding.
There's nothing, absolutely nothing that's explained it at all. And I don't know how us fans are going to be able to go about with it on Sunday now. I think that they're really putting a flame on us at the moment. And there's and also the Paratici, interview. I think he actually did come across really, really well with that. But again, I felt the questions were good, but the answers weren't. Yeah.
But again, my problem with that interview, and there's nothing. Can I just say nothing against Smithy, who's an absolute top bloke, really, really nice, genuine guy. But it was a very much, you felt, club-led interview with not much challenge there. And it's all very well to have an interview like that where we were told, we're going to come on to it in a second, the interview with Paratici, that we're going to have a sit down with him just to bring George in here. And, we're going to get the answers that we want. I'm not saying that's what they promised us, but we felt that we were going to get something from Paratici to almost feel, right, this is the direction we're going in. And I think they've had 2 opportunities here. They've had the Paratici window update, where we are for 12 minutes expecting some form of direction. And then we've also had the opportunity where they've had the responses back to the THST Trust, where they had the opportunity now twice to be able to give us an opportunity to feel, okay, we can try and reconnect. But I've got to be honest and say that I don't know many fans that will come away from either the update with Paratici and these questions and feel any sense that they feel they're back on track, or in understanding of what we're trying to achieve or do. George, let me get your thoughts, George. You've had a chance, sorry, mate, just to bring you in on that first question that I read there and the response from the club. How do you judge it with that response?
It feels very much like a politician's answer. Again, like we've said multiple times already, like they're just defending themselves and what they've done so far. And it's weird. I feel like a lot of what they've said in their answers are very contradictory, because there's one cases where they're saying, oh, we've had to build this so that we can get more revenue to reinvest in the football. But then we're not really seeing that yet, despite the fact we've been in the stadium a few years now. We've had all these other deals with NFL. We've had multiple concerts, whatever it may be. And it just feels like there's not really any interest in the football side from them at all, to be honest with you. It feels like they're just completely trying to make the club pay for itself. They're not interested in investing in any of their own wealth whatsoever to be able to improve the football. They're just trying to make it completely self-sustainable. And yeah, it's all a bit confusing. They're saying that, yeah, we've spent 500 million in this time, but then most of that was absolute rubbish. And then they've now bring in Paratici to try and fix it, which, yeah, most of the stuff so far I think he's done has been pretty good. But like Rick said before, we haven't gotten rid of all the dead wood still. Like, our squad size is incredible in terms of first team players. And they're just not addressing the actual football issues at hand. There's no actual football strategy in place. It's not like in the original statement when they said it's a 3-step plan, it's like, oh, we've had European football for 13 years in a row. When it's like, okay, well, when you take them season by season, the Europa League seasons, we could have easily got to the final or towards the end, should have won. Conference League, we should have won the season we were in there. Like, these are low competitions that we should be winning, and we're not even anywhere near competing in them. And we had one incredible season in the Champions League. So it's all well and good just saying that we're in these competitions when we're not being competitive in them. So what's the point? It's purely then about the revenue that they're earning from going into those competitions.
Yep.
And now that we've done their 3 steps, we've got the lodge, we've got the stadium, we've so-called improved where we were from when they overtook us. What's the next plan then? They haven't said, okay, this is our next 10-year plan on how to win the league, if that's the case, if it's going to take that long. They just haven't answered anything and just completely try and back what they've done so far. Do you see what I mean? So it all feels like a bunch of words that don't actually mean anything, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I can't just apologise for those that were coming onto this show expecting a Man City preview. We will come on to Man City, but can I just say, for those that have watched Last Word On Spurs for the last 2-3 years, and especially in this last 6 months, I feel like every show has been completely derailed by the board or by circumstances beyond our control. It's like you need that banner at the bottom that says apologies for the inconvenience. This show has been derailed. Just like, I've never known a show that we ever do that. We were meant to be a post-match analysis show that look at games, and that seems to then go off into a completely different direction because of what we're having to discuss with potentially Paratici facing a long-term ban. We've got the manager currently absent due to illness, which obviously we wish him the best on. And there's just so many things to cover here, and we're going to try and do our very best to do so. But we have to obviously cover off the rest of the sponsors that we've had from the club. George, to stick with you. So the trust asked the further question of the manager employed by the club has not signed a new contract and tells us that we should lower our expectations about on-field outcomes. He has publicly said that the club needs to spend big money every window just to compete. How does this align with the board's philosophy for achieving success? The club's response back to that was, like everyone at the club, our head coach wants the team to compete for top honours. The club has invested heavily in the squad. This is a continual process with the aim of standing the club in good stead on the pitch for years to come. Since opening the stadium in April 2019, we have spent more than 500 million, putting us in the top quartile of spending in the Premier League, and we have made significant investments in the women's team too. In addition to the summer investment of over 200 million, we've committed to a further 47 million spend this January. Despite this, we are consistently seeing references to our perceived lack of backing for the head coaches and lack of spending. It's important that we deal with facts. Our spend levels quite clearly show that we have backed our football side. There is always a fine line between long-term investment and short-termism, which is why our recruitment has to be first class. Mistakes at this level leave a financial and sporting impact for the future seasons. We have felt the financial impact of supporting player purchases which have not worked out as hoped. We have taken the steps to improve this area of operation, and the recent windows reflect this. So I think that last bit is all you're going to get in terms of an admission that they've made a mistake, but not willing to say we've made a mistake, George, in so many words. How do you judge that response to that question for you?
This is again where I find it like a little bit contradictory, because it's yes, they're saying we spent 500 million, but then they've also then admitted later on that they've made mistakes on those signings, and they're saying, oh yeah, we've committed to the football by spending this money, but they're not spending it correctly while having the correct recruitment. If you look at Brighton, for example, they've bought far better players than we have for next to nothing. So it's not impossible to build a better team with less investment. And then also it's like, again, saying, okay, we're spending committed 47 million this window, even though it's only really been 5, and then the rest is going to defer to the summer when the Kulusevski payments due, when Romero payments are due, and then okay, all of a sudden we're not going to have the budget to get certain players, and they're just using the fact that they spent 500 mil to say they've backed the football, rather than actually looking at what the manager wanted for their teams. We look at Mourinho coming out recently saying he wanted Kim Min-jae for 10 mil, and that was too much. So they wanted to pay 5. Even then, back then, he wanted Skriniar at centre back, and we couldn't bring him in, so we had to get Joe Rodon in the Championship. Look at Mourinho as well. Conte as well. He quite clearly wanted Bastoni as his number 1 target. And okay, granted, he said he wanted to stay, but it wasn't even like a hard push to try and get his main target. And we've then had to settle for another player on loan.
Yeah.
Who is not going to be committed past this summer. So it's a very, very short-term move. And there's been plenty of cases like that where they're saying they're committing to the players money-wise, but in reality, they're not actually bringing in the players that these managers want. And then you've got to ask yourself, well, why bring in a Mourinho? Why bring in a Conte if you're then not going to bring in their players? Even Poch, who brought us to an unbelievable level, we then spent a year and a half not signing a single player, which is just impossible. When you look, even like if you look back at the greats like Sir Alex and whatnot, they will tell you that you have to refresh the whole team in a 5-year cycle. In 5 years, the team should look completely different to what it did 5 years ago. We've still got about 5 players that we had 8 years ago, which is unbelievable and is like unheard of in any other team. So they're trying to say that they've made investment in the football, but they're just looking at it from the money point of view and not actually necessarily bringing in the right players to make the team successful.
I mean, Christina, just to bring you in there, I know, again, I use that word, such a defensive approach to that latest question I've just read there. Such a defensive approach. And, you know, again, just paraphrase that last bit, if I don't mind. You know, I say paraphrase, I'm just going to take out that bit where they say, despite this, we consistently see references to our perceived lack of backing for head coaches and lack of spending. What I think I would say is that, I mean, look, they have given a lot of money to managers, but I think George said at the start, the money just simply hasn't been spent in the right places. It's not been smart recruitment, I think, as you said as well, Ricks. I mean, how do you take away, Christine, your view on that particular question, the response to that question?
Well, the fact that they said, like, oh, we've spent more than 500 mil, then that just shows you've spent that money on awful players to me. Like, it's facts at the end of the day, you know, and I think it's a combination of that. The recruitment is appalling. I also think it's poor from our academy as well. We've had to buy in young players. We don't get any from our own academy. And I think that is something that is really important to us. Like, we can grow these home academy players, and also we can use it to sell. But again, we don't sell players. We just keep them for as long as we can for some reason. It's just also the problem whole combination.
What I would say is that we have seen in the past that we found it very hard to also move players on. But again, I do think, you know, you have to do it, right? You have to find a way of moving these players out. If they're not good enough, no disrespect, they can't continue being here.
I don't know what it is. It's like we just latch on to players. And I'm going to admit, when I saw about Doherty, I was actually quite happy about it. I'm glad I don't have to see him in a Spurs shirt again. Yeah. I'm like, sorry to say that. But the thing is that I saw people moaning about, oh, we could have got money off him. The guy's 31. He gets injured all the time. He hasn't played well at all. What are we going to get? Like 3 to 5 mil? It's not going to be that much. I was glad.
We had a period with Doherty over 3-4 months where he did show good form, and that did help the club achieve Champions League. But with no disrespect, you know, seeing statements that, you know, some of the players are devastated by him going, that really, really worries me, because what kind of message does that send if we're, and this is no disrespect to Matt Doherty, I wish him all the very best with his move to Atletico Madrid, but we should not be devastated at the loss of Matt Doherty to this football club. That's all, again, nothing against Matt at all. He's a fine professional and he's been unlucky with his injuries. But I mean, you know, we're not talking about Harry Kane. We're not talking about, no disrespect, Christian Romero or Bentancur or Kulusevski. We're talking about a player that really didn't get a significant run of games in the team because, quite frankly, Conte didn't think he was good enough. Ricks, we're just going to clear up these last couple of questions from the trust. We are going to move things on. The next question put to them was: are you satisfied with the player recruitment in recent transfer windows and with the performance of youth teams and the development and supply of our younger players through to the first team? Are there any plans to improve this? They come back and said, answered above. We are excited by the young talents we have at the academy. We have always ensured a clear pathway for youth to protect the first team, along with a development system that includes strategic loans in respect of new young players. Jude Sunsup-Bell is a great addition to our under-21s. Can I understand that, Ricks? I would say at the moment there isn't a clear pathway for our youth players because, with no disrespect to Conte, he doesn't want to use youth players. He wants to win. And he was forced into using, you'd argue, some of the younger players recently because we had multiple injuries in which it affected. Well, Brian Hill got his opportunity. Obviously, he wasn't through the academy, but he's a young player. Same as Pat Matassar. Again, young player, had to be given an opportunity due to our lack of injuries. Can you see a clear pathway for the academy in this squad, generally?
Not at this moment. Not at this moment, because we've got, like you just said there, Antonio Conte, who, you know, we can talk about the long-term future and what's happening next season, but he doesn't know and we don't know if he's going to be there to steer the ship and kind of bring these players through. But I would say at least they are picking young ones up, high-profile young ones up, and then they've got a plan where it's, you know, we're going to send them out on loan. So, for instance, like the Chelsea boy that we just bought, you know, it was said that he's going to come in for the under-21s, help them out until the end of the season, and then the plan is for him to go out on loan to help develop, and then you know maybe bring him into the team or we sell him, you know. So there is a bit of a plan, but to as a pathway to get through to the first team, there isn't, because right now, like I said in my first statement, it's like Conte has risen the bar of not only the club, but the fans as well. So now I want ready-made players. Do you know what I mean? I want somebody of high profile. You know, I don't want to be kind of. It's always nice when a young one comes through from our academy, and I will always back them. Do you know what I mean? And hope that they hit the heights. But in this particular time, in this particular season, in this particular period of Tottenham history, we need ready-made right now. Do you know what I mean? We need ready-made. We need to go for something. We can't keep starting and stopping a project. You know, 4-2-3-1, Pochettino, high press. You know, that's designed of a different player than to what Conte's doing. Back three. Let's hold the ball. Let's counter-attack. Let's use our wing-backs. You know, so they're two different strategies, which means two different profile of player. Somebody like a project manager like Poch is going to be happy to bring through the young ones. Is going to be happy to kind of help develop them. Conte, as we've seen, for example, Spence, he doesn't really want to bring them through, you know, and especially if he hasn't had a hand in it. You know, those players have got to go away and prove themselves and then come back. And what I would also kind of, to caveat what I'm trying to say, if we look at the Eriksen scenario when Conte was at Inter. So Eriksen was a club signing for Inter Milan when he got over there. Conte didn't really want Eriksen. It didn't really play within his system. Obviously, Eriksen, great professional, great guy. When they started to get into trouble, when they had a lack of creativity in the season that they won the league, the second half of the season, Eriksen ended up being brought in, and then things started to click. So it's not to say that just because he doesn't want him right now, that he doesn't want him. But things have to be proved to Conte to have that pathway through for the young ones. You know, we're all hoping that come next season, Spence is number 2 right wing back behind Porro, and then we sell Emerson. You know, I think the majority of us are kind of thinking and feeling that way. So hopefully, fingers crossed, Spence can go out there, do what he done when he was at Nottingham Forest and impress and get some game time and get some football in his legs, and then improve performances for Rennes can almost caveat into good performances for Tottenham. Fingers crossed, you know. So there isn't a clear pathway, but there is a there is a plan there. What I don't like about the statement is that there ain't no, like Christina was kind of picking up on earlier, there ain't no emotion. There ain't no love.
Human touch. Just a little bit of human touch in there would be nice. I don't
compare that to the Villa situation when they sold Jack Grealish, when the owner did a full-on video explaining how they tried to protect him. They did the 100 million clause, thinking that no one's ever going to trigger it. We did it for him, but then obviously City came through and we had no choice. But at least he sort of showed and shared his plan and actually put his face to the words. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've got to talk about Jack Grealish for Christina's sake. We can't bring Jack Grealish into a conversation. Right. Finally, last point of this statement. The question was asked: does the club have a plan for further investment to ensure that the club remains competitive on the pitch in the face of substantial additional investment by other Premier League clubs? And is the club any closer to securing a naming rights provider? And is there a plan for further investment from ENIC or from other potential investors or buyers? The response from the club answered in part above.
Oh my gosh.
In response to the latest part of this question, all of our conversations with third parties are confidential. With specific reference to naming rights, we are clear that any deal has to be right for the club. Notwithstanding, we have currently our own name proudly on the stadium, receiving global recognition. Financial stability has been fundamental to how we have run this club. Our aim has been to combine the financial stability of the club with remaining competitive on the pitch. The ENIC investment was timely and critical as we emerge from the pandemic and sought to stay competitive on the pitch. We are ever conscious of the new capital injected into other clubs, which has seen player transfer spending increase significantly. Finally, they said, we should be mindful, however, of the implications of the changes to the governance of the game, which will compel greater sustainability and financial fair play. Major changes have been introduced in Europe around FFP regulations, including the newly launched UEFA financial sustainability rules, the full impact of which will be felt from the 2025-26 seasons. They are based on 3 pillars: solvency, stability, and cost of control, and clubs will have 3 seasons to adjust to them. Many expect that the new rules will be a game changer for the sport. We should also allow for the possibility of even tighter regulations. I mean, I think for all of our own mindset here, I don't know what to respond back to that with, but I mean, I am just a little bit apprehensive that that's only going to add a lot of flame. It's almost adding petrol to the fire at the moment, in which we needed some form of calmness and reassurance that we're going to get some answers to these questions. I'm not quite sure if we have done, to be fair. Just to finish, the Trust said, we welcome the club's direct engagement with the questions asked, and we welcome the information provided. However, we wanted to see a greater acknowledgement from the club of the legitimate concerns shared by many fans and a fuller explanation in a number of key areas. We are sure that all Spurs fans endorse the ambition that the club should be consistently qualifying for the Champions League and challenging for and winning major trophies. However, there needs to be an acknowledgement that one trophy in 22 years cannot be regarded as meeting the measure of success. And I completely agree on that, guys, I have to say. And finally, likewise, the intention to build a strong, deep squad with a winning mentality is one that all Spurs fans would share. But that could be said to have been yet achieved. And we referred in our questions to the comments made by the head coach, Antonio Conte. We note the club's acknowledgement that a number of player purchases have not worked out and the recognition of need for improved recruitment. So, look, guys, probably not the answers we wanted. And I say, probably not the way we're going to start this show. And we're nearly 40 minutes in of what was going to be an hour show. So what we are going to do, we are going to go for our first break of the show for our listeners and audio. And you are going to hear the first part of 2 of Fabio Paratici's interview, in which he gives an update on Spurs' window and plans for the future. Can I say a massive, massive thank you to our watching audience. We've got over about 700-800 of you watching us live right now. We're joined by the returning regular Ricky Norwood, who hope we're going to have Rick's back quite a number of times throughout this season if this show doesn't mentally kill him. Joining Rick's, we're wonderful, joined by the brilliant Christina Zandes back on Last Word On Spurs, and returning George Achillea. To be fair, George has had some nice shows on Last Word On Spurs, so he's been due a difficult one.
No offense, yeah, exactly.
No offense, George, mate, no offense. Right. Well, we know one man that probably won't be around potentially for the game. Although there is talk he might be in the stadium, and that is Antonio Conte, who has confirmed that surgery went well for him, and he's already feeling better after an operation to remove his gallbladder. Now there is hope Conte could well be enough able to actually be at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for the match on Sunday with Christian Salini to take charge. But there is also a chance Conte could travel back to London in time to watch it, in which he would have a direct line of communication with Stellini if he's deemed not well enough to travel. So it's one we will have to keep a close eye on. I mean, coming over to you, Ricks, he's had a really difficult year, Conte. Really difficult year. He's lost 3 close friends. You add that now with an unplanned operation midway. How do you think he's feeling at the moment, Ricks? Is he still up for this?
Do you know what? I think emotionally, I think he's all over the place. I think he is absolutely all over the place. And, it's been a very tough, quick, relentless season. The first half of the season before World Cup, it was every 3 days. He didn't have time to think or feel. Then we lost Gianpiero, which was a massive, massive blow, because not only were they friends and did they have a relationship over 20 years, but he was with him at the club day to day, and even when he went home ill, he didn't want to leave. He was worried about training, and he was worried about being there for the team. And then a couple of days later, he passes away, and that was a massive punch to the gut. We've all had people that we've lost along the way. We've all had friends or family that we've lost along the way, and we all know how that can feel. And that's how I think Antonio was feeling at the time. But to lose 2 more friends on top of that must be a massive, massive blow to his heart and his head. And then dealing with the politics of Tottenham Hotspur, especially when you haven't got the headspace or the emotion space for it. That must have been tough. I mean, it was really encouraging to see I think it was at the end of Preston, but when Conte went up to the crowd and he was fist pumping, and he was like, come on to the crowd, to the away fans. And I think that was a really positive sign. So I think that Antonio loves football. It is a massive passion of his. And I think that he can achieve his ambitions with us, but we do need to be with him. We do need to support him, and that's where the home fans and the away fans have been tremendous, because we're not blaming him for some of the shoddy results. We know what the real problems are. We know that we've got 5 to 7, 8 players that have been there since for the last 8 years, or whatever Georgie was saying there earlier. However long it has been. And we know that we've had problems. We know that we haven't invested in certain areas. We know that when we have invested and when we have spent money, we've had our fingers burned. For example, Ndombele and Lo Celso, 100 million on 2 players that are out on loan right now. So, but what I would see as encouraging is that, one, and this is without the court case and stuff going on, but one, Paratici is there dealing with the football side. 2, the club has said to him that it's a different transfer strategy, but we're going, window by window, we're looking to improve. So we have seen since Paratici and since Conte, especially Conte's turned up, we have seen an improvement and an upgrade in the players that we've brought through the door. To encourage him, we would have to spend a good 200-300 million in the summer, to get the defenders, to get the goalkeeper, to get maybe one more midfielder in of very high quality. And I think that with those things in place, he would be excited to carry on again. All of the people that he's lost have been football people. And all of those people love football inside backwards. Football was their life. And Antonio Conte is very much the same. So however sad or however, low he's feeling right now, I think there's going to become a point where he finds his love again, and he finds his passion, and he realizes that, football is what I love to do, and be inspired by that, and kind of motivated and reinvigorated by that, and then he can go again. It has been a tough December, January. It has been tough for every single Spurs fan and player within the club. But I do think there's brighter days ahead. I really do. I think Porro, even though, we would have liked more over the January window, I think Porro is going to be a game changer. I think he's totally going to change the way that we play, the way that we attack, you know, the problems that we can create on the pitch. You know, the biggest problem, people talk about the first half and defensively, as we back off, we allow everybody to play. That's because there's two phases of play. Basic in football, two phases of play. There's defensive play and then there's offensive play. Do you know, attacking play. And when you're attacking and you lose the ball, you will quickly go into defensive shape to try and, you know, defend the goal and try and get the ball back to move forward. When we're in the first half and we're always on the back foot and when we haven't got the ball, that means the whole first half we're in defensive play.
Yep.
Now with somebody like Porro who can break the lines, who's got speed, who can cross, who is creative, who can score, and who is one of the most important players now within the Tottenham side, because the most important positions in the Tottenham side are the wing backs. And finally, we've got one at least that is dynamite, good age and ready to go, high profile. So fingers crossed, in a Spurs shirt, he can do even better than he done in a Sporting shirt. And fingers crossed, the rest of the season is bright, and that will inspire him to go, oh, okay, my system and this team is starting to click. Well, let's go again in the summer. Yeah. And that's what I think will happen with Antonio. But of course, he's low at the minute. It's hit him hard, and especially being in hospital away from his family and stuff like that. Of course, it's going to hit him. But I think he's going to be. I've got a feeling that he's going to be reinvigorated by the love of football and come back to Tottenham and you know, hit the ground running.
Yeah, Christian, just to bring you in, we are going to talk about Paratici's recent interview in a minute, but we know Spurs have not put an exact time frame on Conte's return. I think the NHS guidelines, it suggests that it's a maximum of 2 weeks to return to normal activities after a gallbladder removal surgery. And I mean, look, there is optimism that he will hopefully be back. I mean, we saw a report earlier today from Corriere dello Sport, which is one of the Italian publications. They expect Conte to return to the bench against either Leicester on February the 11th or Man City on February the 14th. I mean, how much, Christy, do you think he'll be a miss on that touchline for the players? Does it change a lot not actually having him on the touchline there, almost coaching them as he does to some degree whilst they're actually in game?
Massively, I think. I'm scared for the second half, put it that way. No, I think it's going to, especially with, you know, Porro, like, I think it's going to have an effect. I do. And I am a bit nervous, but I think at the same time, the players need to realize, you know, do it for Conte as well. It's been so, I've had so many conversations about Conte recently with a lot of my friends about whether Conte in or Conte out. And I get it with like how a lot of people don't agree with his system and that he won't change it. But at the same time, I feel exactly what Ricky said. He's had a difficult year with us, you know, and as well, I don't think he's been backed at all. And I'm going to honestly be so gutted if he leaves and wins nothing with us. I just think it's going to be so embarrassing for our club to bring in someone so big like this and nothing comes out of it. It's just such a huge waste. I don't want to say it's a huge waste of time, but it's just, there's so much potential with him. Yep. And not even that, he brings in the attraction to other players as well that want to come and join the club.
Yeah, agree.
And it's just, I do think it's going to show him not there. And that's what I hope it does in a way to show actually how important he is to us. So yeah, I think especially the second half. So I'm intrigued to see how these players behave and the mentality as well. But with the new guys that have come in as well, I'm hoping that this also brings a bit of pride back into our team, because I feel that lacks in our team right now. I don't know if anyone out there right now feels proud to be wearing our badge right now. I don't know.
As players, you mean? As players?
Yeah. I just feel like it's just all in the air right now. And yeah, watching the players, you know, on the pitch, you just don't know what the plan is. I just feel like they don't know what they're doing. It's just so I'm hoping this will be a bit of a turnaround. Yeah.
I mean, I say you'd hope, coming over to you, Jules, this will hopefully galvanise the squad in which everybody will come together and want to give the best for the manager, because he's obviously going through this current situation and circumstances in. I mean, Christina, I could see kind of backed off there. She went, you know, it might be a complete waste of time. I'm going to tell you, you know, if we do not win anything with Conte and we've gone through Mourinho, and then give Poch the rebuild, then I'm going to be honest, this has been a complete and utter waste of time. This 100%. Has been a complete and utter waste of 4 years in which we really should have given Pochettino the rebuild which he asked for all those years ago when he actually had an 11 to build on, and we failed to do so. So I will say it has been an utter waste of time. What vibe do you get, George? I mean, look, you go home and away, you watch this club up close and personally. When you see Conte on that sidelines, again, home and away, do you get the vibe, George, that he is in this for the long term?
To be honest, I think so, because the way you see his press conferences as well, he's never once really said that he's not going to be here for the long term, and he's always said he's happy at Spurs, and things coming in mistranslation, and he seems very animated. He seems very involved with the team. The players seem to be happy with him as well, because it's a bit of a domino effect. If you lose Conte, you're guaranteed to lose Kane, because Man United are after a striker in the summer, guaranteed. Obviously, Weghorst is only a loan. Harry Kane's an obvious choice for them. It's guaranteed goals for the season. He's still will only be 31 at the time. You still have at least, or 30, you still have 3 years at least minimum at the top level. So we'll risk losing him and a bunch of other players as well. And if that's the case, you almost have to fully commit to a new plan. But you then don't go and sign Pedro Porro if you're not going to then back Conte going forward. Because if you look at his statistics, he is an extremely attacking wing back. He doesn't necessarily do too much on the defensive side. So if you're then going to bring in another manager to play a back four, he then becomes redundant, because you're basically going to have to transition him to a winger, because he won't necessarily be as good as an out-and-out right back. So then, again, that's another wasted 40-odd million. So it's like, if they're doing it now with 6 months left, surely the plan is to back Conte. I think Conte is effectively just waiting to see how the rest of the season goes, whether we do win the FA Cup or not, whether we do make it into the top four or not, or how well we do in the Champions League. Because there does seem to be slow progress in terms of the recruitment. We're getting those two players.
You're right. I think that's important to say that, George, isn't it? I mean, you come back on that point there, George. I mean, look, what I will say is Paratici is slowly building up this team. Maybe it's not to the speed of what we all want. I mean, there's that argument that we could do more. In my opinion, we should be doing more. I have said it consistently, and for those that criticise me personally that I'm not critical enough of this board, I mean, I don't know how much more critical I can be when I place on record on here every single week that I have said, I don't know how many times I've said this on Last Word On Spurs, that under this current ownership, I've always felt we are 1 or 2 players short every single window. So if that's not criticising them, I'm not sure what is criticising them. I can't say I've ever come out of a transfer window and felt we are ready. That's summer, January, and that's me being brutally honest with you. And again, I look at where we are right now, and I'm going to say it as well. Conte is not immune from criticism. I'm going to say that as well. I take everyone's points on board. I feel Conte is very stubborn with his tactics, with his system. And I think you have to show a sense of flexibility in order to get the best out of some players. I mean, like the Basumas of this world, Son has been off form like we've never seen during any period at Tottenham. And I just can't quite believe that's all down to just this season. I think the playing style to some degree is rigid. But then Conte will argue, well, you haven't given me the players that I need in order to be able to produce a system that is conducive to the players I've got.
Well, and you've got to remember as well, the second half of last season when we really kicked into gear, when we signed Kulusevski and Bentancur, we had some of the best attacking stats of any team in the Premier League. We were second top goal scorers to Man City, I think it was. And the football was good. We managed to get into the top 4. We were like, it was going well, because at that time, he had actually trained the likes of Dyer and Davis. Remember back last season, we were saying how Dyer and Davis had some of the best seasons they've had recently. The problem is, I think it's just naturally caught up to them where realistically they aren't at the level that Conte really needs. So when we were calling for the fact that we needed centre-backs in and we didn't get them, I think that was a major issue. This system does work and it can be attractive if you have the right players. And Pedro Porro is one step closer to that with the wing backs, because I think Perisic does a fine job. May not be great defensively, but he's got the most assists in the team. So he's doing what he needs to do. We've got Destiny Udogie coming in next season as well, who's having an incredible season at Serie A. So there's good things to look forward to. Romero is a great starting block, but you need the other 2 solid defenders as well. You need a goalkeeper that can play with his feet, which is what Lloris cannot do, because how do you expect the system to work if you don't have the personnel to do it the way he wants to? And then, yes, I 100%. Conte can be to blame with how rigid he is at times. But then at the end of the day, if we were to switch to a back four, what would that back four be? You would then have, okay, Emerson might be more suited to the right back, but then you've still got Dyer or someone alongside Romero. Who's going to play left back? Perisic is not an out-and-out left back, which means you're probably going to play Sessegnon or Davis there. And there's still a recent goal. Like, it's not really going to improve much except for add another attacking player, which means we still might leak goals. There's no guarantee that it will work. So I think the only way, if we're going to back him, we just have to get the top quality defenders in.
I agree.
That will just allow us to not concede goals, and then the attackers can do whatever they want. And then for all we're scoring the most goals in the league, and happy days, no one's complaining.
Yeah, no, I do agree. Like I say, I mean, go on, you're coming in, Rick?
No, I was just going to say on Conte being away, and the boys doing it for Conte, but there also might be a thing with Stellini being in charge. The leash might be taken off him, so we might get a bit more free flowing or fast paced. We might, I know Stellini's taken the FA Cup press conferences and stuff like that, but Conte's always been present, and if he's not around, I'm not saying. Look, Stellini knows what Conte needs and what he requires from the players on the pitch, and I'm not saying he's going to abandon that. But what I'm saying is that there might be a sense of, firstly, let's do it for Antonio at home. Let's make sure that he recovers well, and let's get him back as soon as possible. But secondly, that teacher or that headmaster ain't at the side of the pitch right now. So it's like, oh, well, we can play football. Do you know what I mean? Or there might be a new excitement, or there might be a new energy coming to those players, and we don't know what we're going to see.
No, I mean, the one thing I would say is, and this is the only thing I'm actually disappointed about, is that the fact that Conte isn't now around for the press conferences. I think we all would have been very, very keen to hear his reaction of the business that Spurs did in January, which kind of leads me on quite nicely to Paratici giving, I think it was again, forgive me, look, for when I checked the YouTube length of time on the video, it was around 12 and a half minutes in which Paratici was questioned by Smithy, obviously, I say good friend of the show, Smithy. And I'll be honest, I mean, for me, it felt like a very much club-led interview where it almost felt the questions were written by Tottenham and then answered by Tottenham. And look, that's just my personal opinion. I can only say what I see and how that statement has come across. I mean, he was asked, can you give us your overall assessment of how Tottenham did in the window? He said the January transfer window every time is not easy because first thing, you can't choose all in the market because a lot of players you are after are not available because they are playing, because the other club are not happy to sell the player. Sometimes you can get your targets, say we are happy and that we joined our targets and we added 2 international players to our squad. I think we have to look at not the small picture about this transfer window, but the big picture of our project. It's a long-term project. So when I came here 18 months ago, we used the word rebuild. The squad to be competitive in the most high level in the Premier League, and we continue like this every transfer window. So we sought to add 2 or 3 players to our squad, to our plan. We want to sign just players that can add something to us, not just to sign players because we have to sign players or because we are under pressure about signing players. It's not our style. We know our plans, we know our philosophy, and we continue like this. I think the only thing that worries me about that opening, remark from Paratici is, he's using that term rebuild, but we've got a win now manager in charge. And, rebuild and Conte to me doesn't seem to go together. Rebuild and Mourinho didn't seem to go together. If you're going to bring in a manager that is used to winning and wants to win, I don't think they're interested in the term rebuild. I understand what he's saying, that we had to rebuild the squad, but I don't, for me, I've got to be honest with you and say, the more I listened to that interview, the more I was zoning out. I've got to be honest and say to you, I was really hoping, and it was silly of me maybe to hope that, we were going to get a form of a bit of a challenge of an interview, and it never really was a challenge. I mean, look, Rick, let's go to Christina first. Christina, what did you make of the interview with Paratici?
I thought that answer, I feel like I've heard that every year at Tottenham. It was just like the same thing that I've heard I've even heard it on Sky Sports, I swear to God, as well. It was just, I completely agree. It was, he came across Paratici. I thought it was, Smithy as well. It was all nicely done up and everything, but it was just the answers were just, there was nothing in depth, or it wasn't elaborated as to what the actual question was. It was, yeah, it was just a repeat of everything I've heard every year from Tottenham. There was just, I don't know if it was just because of the timing of it as well, the way that they released it. It just all seemed a bit fixed to me. And I agree. I think I turned it off like 5 minutes after, because I just got bored of it. It wasn't giving me anything, to be honest. I don't know what it gave to the other fans, but yeah.
I mean, listen, he spoke about Pedro Porro. He said this is a player that a lot of Spurs... Well, he was asked, Pedro Porro is a player that a lot of Spurs fans are excited about. We've seen him in action against Tottenham, of course, this season. What can you tell us about him? He said, look, first, he's an international player. In the last 2 or 3 seasons, he's played in European competition. He's played for Spain. So, look, he's a player of good quality. Of quality. He's explosive. We're very excited to have him. I mean, very complimentary about him. And he said, we really appreciated the effort of the club and Daniel and all the staff that worked hard to get the Porro deal done. I mean, George, my biggest criticism of the window has been that, we got Porro in, but arguably we brought him in right at the end of the window when arguably Spurs' 2 biggest games of the month were at the start of the window in obviously Arsenal and City. And we've lost 6 points there, which ultimately could be the difference between Champions League football or not. So, I mean, how did you feel, George, that interview came across for you personally? Did you get anything from that made you feel better after hearing that from Paratici?
No, not really. Like Christina's already said, it's very, I don't know. Again, another politician answer is very safe. It's what he said pretty much the same time last year, on the same topics. It was, yes, we're slowly getting the players in we want. We brought in a couple of good players. Yeah, it's great. But at the end of the day, we're failing to mention the fact that Danjuma was a backup for the fact that we wanted to go for Deulofeu from Udinese, but he got injured. So again, it's another backup option. And also not necessarily doing the due diligence on Porro's release clause and the fact that it's not valid 12 days before a window. It's like little things like that I feel like we're not doing right. And how many times have we said that, let's get our deals done at the beginning of the window so we can actually have the player in time. And I think we did start to do that last summer, to be fair. We brought in Perisic early, we brought in Basuma early. It felt like we were on the right track. And then when we really needed to step up the gear to get your wing backs, to get a centre back or 2 or whatever, we just almost completely stopped and we didn't sign anyone later on. Whereas this is the opposite. We knew exactly what target we wanted. According to Paratici, we wanted him last summer as well.
Yep.
Yeah, we were dilly-dallying around the payment structure and the release clause when it turns out the release clause wasn't even valid because the club wanted to wait, and now we've basically ended up paying the same amount. So I don't know. It's just a bit odd, and I feel like we just didn't really get too much from that. It was just the same old, really.
I mean, Paratici said in relation to Porro, like, when you have a target and you believe in one player, you believe that he's the best that you can have, and you have to fight until the end. And this time we arrived to the target. You mentioned Danjuma there, coming over to you, Rick. He said, I think Danjuma will be really important. He helps us a lot. He's a player that for 2 or 3 years in every transfer window, he was near to some joining big clubs. And even in the last summer, Villarreal rejected a big offer for him. And when we got the opportunity to sign him, we took this. And of course, scoring on his debut, it's good to see. We believe in the player. We know that the player was so happy for more because it's a good debut and it's a good injection of confidence. I think the most important thing, it's a loan. We have the option to buy him. We'll see what happens in the next 5 months. I mean, what was your overall takeaway from it, Rix, that interview with Paratici? Did it bring you... I think the key thing here is that interview like that is meant to bring you closer to the club or make you feel a bit more optimistic about what the future is, what the plans are. Do you feel that way, Rick, on the back of watching that?
Not really, because we all could have answered those questions. Do you know what I mean? It's like I was expecting some type of insight. I was expecting some type of kind of, look, this is the plan. This is what we're going for. We're playing this style of play because of A, B, and C. We expect our academy players to come through at this point. Like just something that gave me some insight. The majority of what he said was what we would all kind of guess at. Do you know what I mean? Or guess that would be the answer to what you said. Like Georgie said there, it was pretty much a repeat of last season. On Danjuma does actually seem like a Conte player. I remember, bloody hell. I can't remember his name. I'll get back to it. But Sky Sports, our guy, Sky Sports. Bridgie. I had Smithy in my head. That's why I was like, Smith, Bridgie. Michael Bridge. Right, Bridgie said it, I think last season or season before, that Dan Juma would be, and this is not to do with us, it wasn't to do with us, but Dan Juma would be one to watch. And you see his skill, you see his pace, you see his power. Also, him being on loan is basically a try before you buy, one. Two, we're not going to buy him. You know, we've got to remember that Lo Celso's over there. So Lo Celso, we all know that they love Lo Celso. Lo Celso wants to stay out there. So I see it almost being like a free deal come the summer if we want to sign him. You know, on the Porro deal and that being a loan and the timing of it, yes, I agree with everybody that we should have got that done early, you know, especially if it was the release clause. We only found out towards the end of it that this whole 12-day thing, we found out a little murmuring in the press that this whole 12-day thing, you know, the release clause is not in effect for the last 12 days of a window. We only found that out very, very late. Also about the kind of whole loan scenario. So the fact that we didn't buy him outright in this window is more to help Sporting than it is to help us. I mean, it helps us, but it's more to help Sporting and their financial
situation. Yeah.
So the money goes through in the summer so that it helps their records, all right?
Yeah.
And then with Porro, the fact that the fans were on the club's case, Daniel's case, it was a number one position that we have needed to fill with a number one target for a long time. Levy got levied by the Sporting president there. Do you know what I mean? Like, he, you know, every time we was close, he was like, yeah, well, I want another 2 mil. Yeah, well, I want another 5 mil. Yeah, and he just kept changing the goalposts. But who has done that over the past? Mr. Daniel Levy. Daniel Levy, that's Daniel Levy down to a T. How many times have we seen that? You know, we could talk about Martinez. We could talk about. There's a ton of players. Majority of the time of our first targets are Skriniar. You know, our number one target will be like, oh yeah, but can we get this off, or can we get that off, or can we, you know, when the deal has been done, Bruno Fernandes, oh okay, deal is done, oh yeah, but can we pay you £5 million less on? Do you know? There's always that. So karma, as they say, it always comes back around. So I think that is what's happened with Porro. You know, one, the whole loan is to help out Sporting, and then two, Levy got levied in that scenario where they just held us over a barrel and knew that if we didn't get it through, then there was going to be riots at the stadium already. You know what I mean? The negativity and the toxicity is quite high amongst the fan base right now because we all want more, right? And we all want to push. Like I said, Antonio has risen the bar right now. So he knew that if we didn't get the Porro deal off the ground and get him into the club, that there was going to be riots. So you know what? I need another 2.6 million for the administration fees because, you know what I mean? Because he can take the Berties. And so that's why I think that happened. If I would have loved us to pay the release clause one time, beginning of the window, and then him being in training and ready for the big games ahead, Gunners, Man City at the beginning. But it didn't happen. And maybe we don't know all the details. You've got to always remember that we only get told what they want us to know, whether that's journalists or whether that's information provided, you know. And also there's journos out there and there's sites and Twitter accounts out there that love Tottenham fan base to be in turmoil. And it doesn't take a lot for the Tottenham fan base to be in turmoil. You just got to look at that tweet come Sunday from was it Ornstein? It might have been, I can't remember, Athletic, where they was like, you know what, the deal's off. How crazy did everybody go on that Sunday being like, oh, no, come on, man. Not again, man. Come on. How many of us really and truly believed that he was going to be hijacked? Because I had it in my heart.
Man City obviously got a buyback clause on him. We were all wondering that City were going to trigger it. Remember,
it wasn't even that, bruv. I wasn't even worried about Man City. I was worried about Chelsea because they wanted another right back. And I was like, they're just going to drop the money on the table one time and we're going to lose out again. Do you know what I mean? I was
worried at one point they're going to try and buy this podcast the way it's going.
But this is what I'm saying. At least they got it over the line. All right. There were 3-4 opportunities that Daniel Levy of old would have walked away. You know what I mean? And we would have gone for somebody else. We would have gone for the second or third choice. But we did it. We got over the line. He's in the door. He's through the door. Our number one target. The one person that is going to improve us for the second half of the season. So at least they got it done.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. What we are going to do is we are going to go for our next break of the show for our listeners and audio. For our watching audience here, I'm just conscious of Ricky, George, and Christina's time. We're an hour in. This was meant to be a Man City preview. We've not even discussed Man City yet. Just last word on Spurs.
It's the first time you've said it all show, bruv. Conscious of time. Do you know what I mean?
Just slip it in there. Just slip it in there. We're joined by the brilliant George Achillea, the superb Christina Zandes, and the brilliant returning Ricky Norwood. It has been far, far too long. Rick's coming on for more therapy. Bless him. He's always here.
Love it.
Like the doctor, he's always delivering, or should I say postman? Probably the postman more than the doctor. There's always something going on with some prescription with Spurs at the moment. I think in terms of, like I say, that window review from Paratici, finally, the question was put to him. You mentioned earlier about the January window being a particularly tough period comparative to the summer. How much of that is a challenge for you when you're dealing with players coming and going in such a quick space of time when it gets to deadline day, for instance? He responded, I think it's the most difficult thing in January. He said that I think the most difficult thing in January is not the deadline, but it's during the transfer window, because you have got one thing that you don't get in the summer. You get matches inside of the window. Every few days you have matches, and every 3 days almost everything changes. So you have to really be flexible, because players that are playing, they don't want to play one match. They get frustrated. The clubs maybe change their idea because they want to change system or they want to change something. They are not happy with some players. So everything is really, really quick, and you have to be flexible, because if you stay in the same position and everyone changes, you get it wrong. Look, I mean, like I say, I'll let you guys be the judge of what you made of that interview, Paratici. I mean, again, I won't mix my views. For me, I just felt it was extremely, extremely kind in terms of some of the questions, in which I think at a time in which we need a bit more, just a bit more, how can I put this in the most politest way? We need to maybe hold some of these people to account. We just need to maybe hold these people to account and understand what is going on with the football club at the moment. And as I said at the very top of the show, and I'll say it again now, they had two great opportunities to address the concerns of the club. They've had one with regards to that interview with Paratici. They've had the second opportunity with regards to the supporters' trust, and they've somehow failed to do that on neither of the occasions. Am I surprised? Not really. And that, I think, is probably the biggest concern. But we are going to move time on. So Pedro Porro is in the door, as we saw, Dan Juma. And then obviously making up Spurs' January window, we saw the departure of Matt Doherty. We're going to quickly touch upon this because, to be fair, in our deadline day live show, it just got derailed, to be fair, with more Tottenham, as it always does. And I think, again, when you reflect on it, Christina, Matt Doherty's exit, like we actually discussed a bit on air earlier, I'll be honest and say that I think Matt, look, I wish him all the very best of luck. I think he's got himself a superb move at Atletico Madrid when you consider the very little game time he's had. And then even adding to that, really, the fact that, I mean, they've got a really weird obsession, haven't they, Christina, with our fullbacks, Atletico Madrid. I mean, Trippier, Reguilon, Doherty. What is his obsession? They also tried to sign Spence as well, and Spence turned them down. So what is his obsession with right backs and left backs at Tottenham with Atletico Madrid?
Just shove them all in there then, all the dead wood. Like, I'll happily. I mean, I don't know what it is, but
you notice they wanted the centre backs. So they haven't asked for Sanchez or Dyer or Longley or
buy one get one free. I don't know. Just do whatever you can. Like, just get rid of. Nah, I've been a bit harsh, but it's I don't know. It was very weird. I literally, because I didn't see it the night where it got announced about Doherty, and I woke up and I just saw it, and it was honestly the amount of people that were like so upset about it. I was just like, "Are you having a laugh?" I couldn't understand it. I was buzzing. I was literally so happy. I've never really been a fan of Doherty, but yeah, it's so bad me saying this, but yeah, I was absolutely ecstatic. I was really, do you know what? That attitude as well, we should be showing that more, in my opinion. Like, if you're not going to play well, let's just terminate your contract. I honestly think that, like, we should be more harsh on our players. If you're not going to perform as well, then I just don't think you're not part of the plan, if we even have one. But yeah, that's that's what I got to say for that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, just in relation to Jed Spencer, Chelsea, Jed has moved on loan to Rennes, in which hopefully he'll get some regular game time there. We know they've got a couple of injuries there, so hopefully for Jed it will be an opportunity to really, really get some decent game time under his belt and some regular football. And of course, we also wish Brian Hill all the best in relation to his move to former club Seville. He was pining to go back to Spain, he was. But look, guys, we're going to turn our attention to City to come on Sunday. Massive, massive game, you feel, for everybody involved. Look, we'll have to see if Antonio Conte will be in some form of existence at the game there. We obviously are not sure, and we'll update you on that as soon as we get it. Again, I would imagine Christian Stellini will be holding, I think that's been confirmed, he will be holding Tottenham's pre-match press conference ahead of the game. That will be on Friday. So when you're listening back to this, for those that listen to the show, that'll be later today for you. But it's a massive, massive game. Spurs v City always is. I mean, there is that argument that Spurs are City's bogey team. We only played them really 2.5-3 weeks ago. So the two teams will know each other very, very well. George, let's start with you. What are you expecting from this game in terms of the makeup of the two sides? And I know we touched on it earlier, just the absence of Conte, how big that could be. How much do you think that'll play a pivotal part in the way the teams operate on the day for you, George?
Well, I would love Porro to start on Sunday, but weirdly, I don't think he will. I feel like because of the fact of how attacking Man City are, I feel like
you don't think he'll start?
I don't know. I feel like they're going to opt for a more defensive.
George, I honestly think, just to interrupt you on this, I honestly think if Emerson Royale is called out by that stadium announcer at the start of the game, I think there could be a full-on riot.
Oh no, you're probably not wrong.
I just can't. I mean, when you take us 31 days, 30 days to sign a player, you wait 10 minutes before the window, and then you do not use him in that first game. I honestly think it could kick right off. I wouldn't want to be accountable. This is not me trying to tell you who the starting lineup should be, but do you think they could? Do you really think they could do that? I
mean, we've done it before. We've had players and not played them straight away. I really hope that I'm wrong, though. I really hope he is playing because we need him. We need him in attack, especially because I thought we might have rushed Kulusevski back a little bit as well from his injury because he doesn't quite seem as explosive as we know he has been. So if you can have that assistance of Porro on the right-hand side, then, Romero, Porro, Kulusevski, that's a very dangerous side that we can have. But to be honest with you, the game in general, I've never felt so confused at how I want it to go because for me, coming into the first game against City, I was like, right, you either win both and you make a big push for top four, or realistically, we need them to catch Arsenal. So now we've lost the first one. Do you actually want us to lose the second game? And I hate the thought of actually. And I never will actually cheer my team for the lose. It's impossible.
And also, George, just to interrupt you as well. I mean, the home form, as you know, it's really not good at the moment, is it? Tottenham's home form recently. I mean, we've got to address that fairly quickly. I mean, any top four side, it's important you win your home games, and we haven't been winning our home games recently. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. And I think as well, if we look back at the home game last year, yes, we did beat them, but that took like a monster Tanganga performance to lock up Sterling and even Grealish when he came on. And there was only 1-0 from a brilliant Sonny goal. But again, Son's not been on form. He's obviously had a great game in the FA Cup against less opposition, but you'd like to think it's a bit of a booster in confidence for him. It's a really, really tough one to call. Haaland, unbelievable this season, scoring goals, and we know what our defense is like at home. So we're probably in for a long ride in that first half. But all I can say is, like the reverse fixture, I'm just expecting a lot of goals. I can't really tell you what way.
Let's get a prediction from you, George, if you don't mind. What are you going to go for?
Oh, okay. I am going to say, because I don't ever want to say Spurs to lose, I'm going to say it's going to be 3-3.
3-3.
3-3. I think Kane still needs to absolutely break the record. I think if Porro is playing, hopefully that helps us a little bit. Same with Kulusevski. He likes a game against Man City, but again, I don't have trust in our defense. So 3-3.
Yeah. 3-3. Okay, 3-3 from George. Rick has come to you. Look, I mean, City themselves, they go into this game and you'd arguably say a little bit of disarray themselves in terms of recent form, although they did get back on track, of course, beating Arsenal in the FA Cup. I mean, they have lost João Cancelo, who's gone out on loan, as we know. What do you think going into this game for you? Who do you think has the upper hand? I mean, Spurs have got a fairly decent, strong home record against City. How do you see the game playing out for you?
Well, I'm hoping that Man City are going to come in with that kind of arrogance and that kind of that expectation to kind of just walk over us. And I think that's going to slip them up, to tell you the truth. I think that with a week of kind of training and a little bit of rest, I think that this is an opportunity for those boys that lost the game 4-2 after going 2 goals up. I think it's an opportunity for them to rectify and to put some pride back on our name and to, show them what we're about. The Man City game and the Gooner game was, thoroughly disappointing. So it's an opportunity now. The Fulham, Preston, these games have been great to kind of, all right, cool, get us back on track and get us back feeling like we're playing, and you know that there is something about us. But right now is the test. Right now is the test, and it's like, how much pride do you have to not just let them walk over us? So we've got to go out there and fight. We've got to go out there and fight. So for me, I and I know sometimes I'm disillusioned with Tottenham, and a bit like Georgie, I can never back them to lose. So I'm always going to back them to win. So for me, I'm going to say a 3-2 win for Tottenham at home. But you know what, Ricks, before I let you move on to Christina, I just wanted to say one thing about Doherty. All right. So there's been a couple of things. I know we moved on, but there's been a couple of things that I think that we can take encouragement from. Serge Aurier, we could have held on to him and waited for a transfer fee for him, but we got rid of him so that we could bring in Emerson Royale at the time and try and move forward. Dele Alli, that January, the fact that we didn't hold out for a fee or anything like that, like Christina was saying, a bit of dead wood. His time had been over at Tottenham for a while. So instead of like holding out for that, we wrote that off and got him out of the squad, as well as Lo Celso and Ndombele to kind of go out on loan. So, being a little bit more ruthless and a little bit less heartfelt, I think is creeping into the game. I don't think we could have. I think we would have gone crazier if he would have went on loan and he was coming back in the summer. And we would have been like, all right, cool. So what are we going to do now? So it's a crazy decision with 18 months left on his contract that we just ripped it up. But I think there's part of it is encouraging in the sense that we're not holding on to another dead weight, around the squad, and somebody who's not going to play as well. So sorry, I'll let you move on now. No, and we'll get back to Man City. To Man City. All right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thoughts, give me a prediction, Ricks, for the weekend. How can you get
3-2 Tottenham, bruv. I see Harry Kane scoring. I see Sonny back. I see Kulu scoring as well. There's going to be 2 assists from Porro as well. Come on, you Spurs, all day long. Let's have it.
Can I apologise? This was meant to be the big Man City preview, but Spurs being Spurs completely derailed this show. And there you go. Quite frankly, that is the case. While we haven't delved much more deeper into City, Christian, let's come around to you to close it on City. Harry Kane's got a massive opportunity. He's on the cusp of the very, very big milestone to become the club's all-time leading goal scorer. How sweet would it be if it would be Harry scoring the winner in this game against City?
I mean, I was hoping for that for the North London derby, but that was way out of the window. Can I just say, firstly, guys, chill out with Emerson. Come on, he's been improving.
No,
I feel like I'm his only fan. I swear to God.
There's improving, but when you've actually now brought in a genuine wing back, right?
He hasn't trained with us yet, though.
But we've waited 30. You know what? I'm at a point where if this guy's playing on one leg, he's got to start. We've waited 31 days for a genuine wing back. You're going to put me through the fact that after 31 days, 10 minutes before the window shuts, this guy isn't ready. Nah. In true Costa fashion, he's playing. Because I've had Costa on the phone all week, right? And we both said, if this guy's in, he's playing, he's starting. There's absolutely no way after the loss of Antonio, bless him, and we wish him all the best. And you're telling me now with Porro arriving, that Emerson Royale will start. That there will. I mean, listen, I'm not inciting any trouble here. That will not go down well in that stadium. At a time when we need to give everybody a lift right now. There's absolutely no. Can you imagine the lift you're going to get as a fan, George, when you're going to hear Pedro Porro's name read out to start the game? It is going to be, honestly, the change of atmosphere in that stadium when they hear Porro's name, him coming on the pitch to warm up with the players and then coming out. There's going to be a real, I think, galvanising of the team. And look, forget Conte not being there for 1 second, but just having Porro there will give everybody a sense of reassurance that we've actually got a player that plays the position which he should be playing in that team. George, do you agree?
Yeah, 100%. And then as well, we've got to remember it's his old club he's coming up against. So we need to, he might need to prove a point or two. Just be like, look, you could have had me for half the price. You didn't. I mean, I'm here now. Good points.
Listen, Porro played in the cup final last week. So, I mean, again, I understand there's a sense of adaptation. I mean, he's been on a plane for 28 hours. But, there's absolutely no excuse why Pedro Porro does not start against City. I'm sorry, Christian. I know, listen, Emerson wished the goal. Listen, Emerson has survived the coal. You've got to realize Emerson must be thinking, how have I survived this? Well, he's now ended up as the backup after everyone wrote him off. They said he'll never last. And here he is still surviving. So, Yeah, I know. Christina, give me a prediction for City. What are you going to go for?
Oh my God! Well, I'm going to the game and I can't wait. I actually can't wait. Near the. Well,
are you sure you can't wait? You're putting Emerson. Are you sure you can't
I'm
wait?
as
You're
close
putting
as I
Emerson
can be. I'm literally as much close as I can be for a number of reasons. But I'm gonna go for. Oh my God! I don't know what to say because like I just honestly feel like we're gonna get absolutely battered. I hate to say it.
Well, after the Emerson Royale Cup, I'm not sure you can win now.
Either way, right? If we win it, brilliant. I'm always gonna cheer for us. But the other way, like what George said, it's a close step from them getting from the scum because I cannot handle watching them win this league, especially with the way that we're feeling right now. It's going to make it even 10 times worse. So I feel like it's a win-win for both teams at the moment. Oh, please let's not go with Jack Grealish. Sorry, I keep seeing the comments. So anyways, I'm just gonna go for 2-2.
2-2. And you know Emerson Royale's going to score now after this. It's just so obvious. he obviously did score in the obviously resulting fixture. He's going to get the winner. Guys, been an absolute pleasure having you. George, finally, mate, where can everybody find the wonderful work you do? I mean, you follow this club home and away all around the world. Tell us, George.
Yeah, it's just, you see the name there. It's George Achillea pretty much across all socials. Bring about the YouTube uploads as well. Obviously did the stuff on the targets recently. But yeah, go to every game, try to vlog some of them or make an interesting piece on like costings and all that sort of stuff to travel around Europe watching Spurs. So yeah, keep an eye out for that, especially with AC Milan coming up. But yeah, it's just George Achillea across all socials. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me back on. And yeah,
pleasure, mate. We'll look forward to having you back on soon. I have to remind 100%. Rix is with us for AC Milan. I don't know if he's more terrified now or is he ready? Are you ready, Rix?
Let's have it! Come on.
You know what thing is, Rick? Whenever I WhatsApp him, right, this guy is the most positive guy. We could get beat 4-0 in the cup. We'll have it. Don't worry about it. It's going to be fine.
Listen, do you know, I can't help it, bro.
That night at Forest, I was losing. That night at Forest, I was losing. I don't think you've ever seen me like that, Rick. I was so I was on the floor, bro. When you messaged me after the game, I was gone. I was mentally so broken. This team is just. Honestly, this club.
But it does do it to you. Like Tottenham will do it to you. They'll take you to the edge every single time. You'll think we're down in the dumps. You'll think we've sunk to the bottom of the damn sea. Yeah. But then suddenly there'll be this just glimmer of a light, and suddenly, we ain't that far away, and it's not that bad, and maybe we can do something. Do you know what I mean? It does it to you all the time. So listen, like Rix, you're more than welcome to have your ups and your downs the same way as this team does. All right, don't you worry at all.
Bless you, mate. Bless you. Rix, where can we find the wonderful Spurs content you do now? You're almost a talking Spurs therapist on a weekly basis now, Rick, to be honest with you.
Bro, if I get the call, then I'll jump on. I love speaking about my team. I literally could do it so well, night long, mate. I could do it all night long, no worries. But yeah, you can find me at Ricky J Norwood on Twitter, and Instagram is official Ricky Norwood down here. And as always, brother, it's always a pleasure and an honour to be on. I look forward to the next one. The next one's going to be preview for Chelsea, innit? Cheese on bread.
You only had the 4 games last season, Rick, against Chelsea. I won't remind people of that.
Mate,
I think Jason's still recovering from the 4 games. Let alone you at the moment.
Jason, I think Jason's just happy we didn't sign Adama Traore. Do you know what I mean? I think he's just happy that didn't go through this week window.
Man alive. Rick, always a pleasure, mate. Loving you on. Christina, love to have you back on. Chris, where can everybody find you across the socials?
Twitter, and I'm going to be having meltdowns tomorrow about me getting Beyonce tickets, and also plenty of Jack Grealish to come this weekend. So
yeah, no Jack Grealish for this weekend. Beyonce maybe. Well, that's going on with our football club. We're promoting concerts more than the bloody squad. That sums up where this club's going at the moment. It is a worry. But from the brilliant George Achillea, from the wonderful Christina Zandes, and I know Richard, I'm going to try and find that now. My apologies. I know Richard put in a super chat right at the very start of the show, which I am going to try and find. Richard, please feel free just to send it back as a chat, and I'll send that back through. But I just want to acknowledge Richard there. Richard, thank you so much for your comment. Really, really appreciate it. But from the wonderful George Achillea, from the brilliant Christina Zandes, from the wonderful Ricky Norwood, we've been the Last Word On Spurs. We're back with you very, very soon. Keep safe, keep well, and as always, come on, you Spurs.
Come on!